Al Kadosh, Boker Or, Bekiim Bahalacha, day 74. We are on page 224, Halacha Tet. We're going to speak about the machloket, the famous machloket between the Gaon Vilna and the Arizal Kadosh. 28 words or 28 letters. Okay, so let's see. Immediately after responding the third Amen, the congregation adds and they say Yehe, Sheme, Rabba. Yeah, the custom of Sephardic Jews is to continue this response until Daminam Be'alma, which is 28 words, which actually comes from the Arizal Kadosh, which is koach. But remember, we said that the Gemara says that anybody that answers Amin Shemera Bechol Kocho with all their koach. So there's the concept of koach. Koach is 28. So therefore, the 28 is it 28 words or 28 letters? Ashkenazic Jews, it says Shemera B'Malach, and therefore some of them actually add Yidbarach or not. There's a whole difference over there between some Ashkenazim, Nusach Sfar, and Nusach Ashkenaz. Do they do Yidbarach or not? But just Amin Shemera. Okay, 395. So the Bet Yosef cites the three opinions regarding the response of the Min and Sheme Rabba. 28 letters. Rabbi David Bodaham testified that some people respond all the way to the words of V'imru Amen. The tradition he received from his teachers is to respond only in Min and Sheme Rabba V'rach Olam Yah, and that's it. This appears to be the opinion of Sadi Agon and the Rosh. Right? The 7 words beginning with Yehe have a total of 28 letters. While the word Amen is the response to the previous portion of the Kaddish and is not considered connected. The Kolbo likewise stated also it has 28 letters, and that is the meaning of the Talmud. Whoever responds, 28 letters. Rashi and the Rambam both ruled, and the response, right, includes only the 7 words. Okay, and then we'll get to the in practice, because in practice we're going to get into everything. 28 words, the second one. After citing the customer responding 28 letters, the Bitzhak of Wuhav said in the second opinion, the congregation says 28 words, which is given Yehe Sheme Rabba until the Minam Be'alma. Right? This is also the custom of Rabbi David Bodaham. Okay? He said in a manuscript stating that according to the Geonim, it's technically sufficient to say until the words Al-Maya, but if someone added even one more word, he must continue until the end, which is Daminam Be'alma. Okay? He should not add the words V'imru Amen, since those words are the cantors telling us, meaning it's the Shliach Tzibur telling us, V'imru Amen, answer Amen. Okay? And only he gives the instructions. So one second. So we're going to get into practice. So the first one was 28 letters. The second one is 28 words. And the second that you went one word after Al-Maya, you have to do 28 words now. Right? That means if you already did the Yidbarach, you already have to go until Daminam Be'alma. Since there are two, one second. Since there are two opinions regarding how much one must respond, if someone is in the middle of the Shema or its blessings, the Berachot of Kriyat Shema, he interrupts to respond Kaddish, he should respond only with 7 words. But he might be guilty of an unnecessary interruption if he would recite the longer response. You understand? Which makes sense at the end of the day. The third opinion is going to be until Yidbarach, after Yidbarach. So the Bet Yosef cited a Midrash teaching. Rabbi Lazar, the son of Rabbi Yosef, saying, one time I was walking on the road and I found Eliyahu Vizdacholatov. He had 4,000 camels carrying full loads. I asked him, what are they carrying? So he replied, it was the Afechema. You remember we said the wrath and anger, right? Which is going to be used about people that are speaking during Kaddish and Barechu, or between the related blessings, or between two passages of prayers, whether it's going to be Mein Shem Rabba Mavrach and Yibarach. So here it says Mefurash, you're not allowed to make a pasek between Yehe Sheme Rabba, Mavrach, and Yibarach. That means you're not allowed to make a pasek. It seems from this that the congregation must recite the word Yibarach, but it's unlikely that Eliyahu was referring to the Chazan only. It's possible, however, that the congregation needs to respond only through the word Al-Maya, but they must listen to the cantor continuing with Yibarach, and no one may speak until then. Harav Yosef Gikatila warned that it's imperative for each person to add the word Yidbarach immediately. That's why I don't know if you've seen some Ashkenazim do that. Yidbarach. Sometimes they'll even make a pasek, but we're going to see now. Meaning that there's the concept of the Yidbarach there as well. So let's see the Shulchan Aruch. Shulchan Aruch states that it is a mistake to respond only until Al-Maya, since it's forbidden to separate the words Al-Maya and Yidbarach. And this follows the ruling of Rabbi Yosef Kakatilia, but it does not reveal whether you have to do the 20 Yidbarach or whether one should add more. Meaning, Maran only told you one part of the halacha. You're not allowed to stop in Al-Maya. You always have to say Yidbarach. That's it. Now, the 28 words or 28 letters, he didn't actually go into that. He did mention the concept that you're not allowed to stop Al-Mayas. And we did mention a concept that once you actually pass Al-Maya, then you have to do the 28 words, but he doesn't actually say Mefurash Maran. The Magen Avraham inferred from the Bet Yosef that one should recite 28 words until Daminam Be'alma. And this is likewise the opinion of the Shnei Luchot Abrit, the Shla Kadosh, and the Rabba. Despite this, the Magen Avraham concluded that the most correct practice is only the first 7 words. Almaya. That's it. The Kaf HaChaim Sofer ruled that according to the Rizal HaKadosh, you have to do 28 words. Okay, the Minam Be'alma, as was taught in Shara Kavanot, is also the common custom of Sephardic Jews. Maran Rishon LeZion also agree with this. And Netivot Ma'arav testified that although the scholars of Morocco followed the above instructions, the masses adopted the practice of responding through the words Sheme de Kutsha B'richu only. You heard? And by the way, I've heard this myself. That there were a lot of Moroccans that even though the Chachamim did until the Minam Be'alma, the masses, meaning the regular people, would do until Sheme de Kutsha B'richu. They wouldn't continue, which is like a third shita, or a fourth shita, like completely different. Yeah? This practice, however, has no halachic foundation. The Alei Das likewise complained that there's no source to justify this practice, citing the Orchot Chaim, who challenged his readers to find the basis for the practice. He challenged him. He said, find me a source. Meaning, because you're not doing like one, you're not doing like, not like, what are you doing exactly? You know, where are you? You're not here, you're not there, you're not there, you're not anywhere. Okay? What about the practice of Ashkenazi Jews? So one more time. So until now, what you're supposed to do is until Daminam Be'alma for Sfaradim. Okay? There was a concept according to Maran Barach, and that's why I said in the middle of Berachot of Kriyat Shema, you only do until Yitbarach. Or for example, you're in the middle of Elokai Nitzor, at the end of Amidah, and you have to answer the first 5 Amenim and Amen Yishmer Rabba. You answer Yishmer Rabba until where? Yitbarach. Never until Almaya. But according to Maran, you're not allowed to stop between Almaya and Yitbarach, but you only could answer until Yitbarach. You're not allowed to answer the Men Yishmer Rabba fully. Okay, if you're in the middle of Elokai Nitzor. What about the practice of Ashkenazic Jews? Among Ashkenazic Jews, there are 2 customs, both cited in the Mishabra. One custom is to respond until Be'alma, as the Bet Yosef concluded, and the other one is until Yitbarach, following the ruling of Harav Yosef Givtila. The Gaon Vilna endorsed the first custom, explaining that the word Be'alma ends the sentence, while the word Yitbarach begins the next sentence. Right? Therefore, they do not belong together. Okay, the Mishnah Berurah commented that the Gaon Vilna would agree that it is permissible to add the word Yitbarach as long as one pauses after the word the Be'alma. Okay? The Aruch HaShulchan Epstein admitted that most Lithuanian communities have had the custom of responding through the word Yitbarach. This is definitely the custom of most Hasidic communities as well. I think there's a mistake here. Because he keeps on saying Be'alma and then he says Yitbarach is afterwards. But then he says, as long as you're making hafsek between Be'alma and Yitbarach, it's not the same thing. I think it's supposed to be Almaya. Fine, so we did look up the Mishnah Berurah and Sivkat Tedvav, it's a mistake. The Gaon Vilna comes and he says that you have to do it until Almaya. Yeah, he says you do it until Almaya, because Almaya is the end of the sentence, and Yitbarach is the beginning of the next sentence. So this is a mistake here in Bekiim Bahalacha. This is a mistake. Okay, and then he says,
practice Ashkenazi anyway.
I know, but there's a mistake. Then he says, and then he said, that's what he says. If you do it with 2 neshimot, meaning you make a pasek, you make 2 neshimot, it's going to be okay, even according to the Gaon Vilna. Okay, that's what he says over here. The Aruch HaShulchan Epstein, right, admitted that most Lithuanian communities have the practice of responding through Yitbarach. And this is definitely the most Hasidic communities as well. That's why I told you, Nusach Sfarad usually always do Yitbarach. But if not, that's what they do. Okay? Until you're clear. So, Daminam Be'alma. Okay? Almaya Yitbarach. 1 minute. 1 second. Almaya Yitbarach. I'm just finishing, then we could continue. Yeah? Almaya Yitbarach. The Od Yosef Chai, there's a Ben Ish Chai states that Rav Yosef Gitalia's ruling is forbidden to interrupt between Almaya and Yitbarach when responding to Kaddish means it is forbidden to pause even momentarily to show that Almaya is the end of one and Yitbarach is the beginning of the next one. Although Yitbarach actually begins a new sentence, when we respond to Kaddish, we have to recite it without pausing whatsoever. Although it sounds as if we're running one sentence into the next one. According to the prayer book of Rav Shalom and Zach, there's Rav Shalom Sharabi, however, the instructions indicate that we ought to pause momentarily between the words Almaya and Yitbarach. This is likewise the opinion of Rashi in his Pardes prayer book. Despite this, Od Yosef Chai testified that the common custom is to follow the instructions of Yosef Gitale. The practice is that you don't You don't stop. And you don't discourage it or protest it. Apparently, the Yosef's Chai's position is that if someone asks for instructions, he should be taught to pause momentarily after Al-Mayah, following the instruction of Shalom Rabbi. Nonetheless, universal custom among Sfaradim is not to pause. Okay? And that's a simple reading of Shulchan Aruch. In fact, this is clearly the reading of the Ben Ish Chai as well. And Rav Yaakov Hillel expressed surprise at the teaching of the Yosef Chai, demonstrating that there's no proof from the words of Shalom Rabbi to suggest that he differed from Rav Yosef Kiktalia. Okay? Fine. Okay? And with that, we finish that. Now let's just finish. Number 10. Dealing with a speedy cantor. What happens if he's very, very quick? I know you guys don't know what this is, right? But there's, sometimes they're chazanim, they're so quick, right? That they just fly. Yeah? So if someone begins to respond to Sheme Rabba, but he finds that the cantor is so quick, he reaches Sheme de Kuchabrichu even before he finished Daminam Be'alma. So he should not interrupt and respond to men. It's not appropriate according to the Halacha to respond to men at that point, since he's occupied already with responding to many Sheme Rabba with the 28 words, okay, and therefore he just continues. This follows the instructions of the Rizal HaKadosh in the Shar HaKavanot 396. The Shar HaKavanot states that if the congregation or any individual have completed the 28 words of 28 response of many Sheme Rabba by the time the cantor reaches Sheme de Kuchabrichu, they should respond amen. It's obvious from this that if anyone in the congregation has not yet completed it, he should not interrupt. And this is the ruling of the Rav Pe'alim, which is the Ben Ish Chai Neshut, Petach Hadvid, the Rishon LeTzion, and Vadia. He deduced from the words of the Rizal HaKadosh, we're definitely obligated to respond to 28 words for Yesh Sheme Rabba, for it was not absolute obligation, so then we should interrupt. But afterwards, he reconsidered, explaining that it might not be an absolute obligation, but even still, we should not interrupt because Ki'ilu, that there's no obligation for the Sheme de Kuchabrichu. Okay, so it's not a proof 100%. Fine. Okay. Next, if the cantor recites Kaddish so quickly that he reaches the words Daminam Be'alma V'imru Amen before, now, until now we were on Sheme de Kuchabrichu. Let's say the Chazan is so fast, he's already on Daminam Be'alma V'imru Amen, even before you finish Daminam Be'alma. Right? Now remember, when they finish V'imru Amen, they're going to start the Yehe Sheme Rabba. That's why they have to take a few seconds. They're not going to start right away. So take a second or two, and then they're going to start Yehe Sheme Rabba. Okay? If the cantor says it so quickly, right, that he's going to do Daminam Be'alma V'imru Amen before the congregation has completed their response, then they have to cut themselves short and respond Amen, because it's important to answer Amen at that point. Okay, so in light of this, it's important that the Chazan or anyone else saying Kaddish, they should say it slow enough to enable the congregation to respond to Sheme Rabba properly and still be able to respond Amen to Sheme de Kuchabrichu. Look in 397. The Rishon LeTzion ruled in this case that one must interrupt to respond Amen to the Chazan, since it's more important to respond, right, to the end of the half Kaddish. He said it Tarat HaMayim, who issued this ruling, and also he repeated it in Alichot Olam. The LeTzion, however, ruled that even in this case you should not respond to Amen, and he argued that this is the ruling of the response of Rav Pe'alim, that Rishon LeTzion did not concur with this interpretation of the Rav Pe'alim. The Eshel Avraham Botchach pointed out that if several people respond to Mini Sheme Rabba until Daminam Be'alma, they do not need to respond Amen to another, they are to respond to the Chazan only, and only to the Chazan.